Okay, well, Dove Soap has a new fat empowerment ambassador. Fat empowerment goes together. I'm not calling her fat. I just want that to be clear. This is a 22-year-old Black woman who tells us what it's like to take up space in the world as a person in a larger body. This is what she looks like. Her name is Zayana Bryant. There is backlash to this whole notion of fat empowerment, but let's set that aside for a second. There's also backlash to who she is. Because she's done many controversial things. But let's see if let's just think for a second if that is a distraction. Because Dove parent Unilever is able to sort of stand by her like, well, we stand for, marginalization and marginalized communities and intersectionality. But they can say that, but it's not true. They do not care about women. This is a story that's a distraction from the fact that Unilever is made with slave labor. Dove would like us to think that Zayana Bryant is a marginalized person and she is worth our attention because she is an obese Black woman. I'm sure that's a hard life. Yes. You know what also is a hard life? Being a factory worker for Unilever in Kenya and being raped. That's also a hard life. So here is a tale of two woes. One woman says she's representing marginalized people with obesity. Another is a group of factory workers who are starving and terrorized. Which marginalized group do we want to pay attention? This is a truly horrific story. Unilever, they position themselves as this sort of pedantic, good doer, women empowerment movement with ads like this. Like, oh, yes, so empowering, she's not a size 8 supermodel, not overly thin. Now women with ads like this, we feel seen, right? Okay, but let's look at some other women that maybe we might collectively like to empower. This is the Caraco tea plantation in Kenya, owned by Unilever, because they also make Lipton tea. These women are paid by the kilo, about 10 cents. For every kilo of tea leaves that they harvest. They work 7 days a week from 6:30 in the morning until 6:30 at night. In 2007, there was a riot after the presidential election was announced, and the 100,000 residents of the plantation area were terrorized, many of them killed, most of the women sexually assaulted. Here is a summary of that from two eyewitnesses written by journalist Maria Hangeveld for Plow. I'm going to summarize it, but if you'd like to pause the video and read it for yourself, you can. So these witnesses said that they told Unilever that there would be violence, and they said, oh, okay, what they did then was they put security around the houses of management, and when the violence did inevitably erupt, they evacuated only management. Now, again, I want to, there's a little bit too much there for me to say how much of the detail. It's really hard. Now, some said they knew the uprising would be coming, and they said, well, if we're not going to get security, can we have a leave of absence? And Unilever did not grant those requests. Instead, they left those employees there to be graped without the G in front of their children. Their homes burned, looted, many of them killed. No one knows how many were assaulted, but court records show that at least 3,000 homes on the plantation were looted, 2,000 destroyed, tens of thousands of residents fled. Unilever closed the plant and did not pay those workers for 6 months. When they brought them back as an apology, they gave them a 1-month salary. And they even told those workers, you have to come back to work. You may be working alongside your attacker. If you see somebody with something that they stole from you during that uprising, you are not to say anything. You have to work here. And if that guy's got your stuff, too bad. That's how it goes. Those workers actually formed a group and sued Unilever in London. They argued that the parent company was responsible for this. Unilever pushed back and said, yeah, but this is just one of our subsidiaries. We can't really be responsible for protecting them. This suit should have been brought in Kenya and not in London. The court sided with them. They lost. They got nothing. Unilever was able to sort of walk away from this. Now, in the US, we agree that if you get hurt on the job, if you slip, right? Or you get hit in the head by something, then the company better cover your expenses. In Kenya, however, I guess you can get sexually assaulted on the job and it's not the company's fault.
Yeah, they don't care. I wonder if they even sent them like free soap. They didn't give them anything. $150 and you got to keep quiet.
Yeah.
You're going to protect your bosses, but you got to go back to the tea plantations.
Right. And again, I showed you this already, that when they came back to work, they had to work alongside their attackers. And we're told, if you see someone with your stolen belongings, you must not protest. Okay. Now,
can you imagine, though, just think about it for a second, the ads, like where they say, all right, we're showing these like, overweight women. It's empowerment. We're Dove. We stand with these overweight women. That's a real woman. What about showing these women who work in your Kenyan tea fields and doing an ad campaign for those women?
No,
these are real women who work for Unilever, but we can't even show them. We don't want you to know about those women.
Yes.
So we'll use these other women in that way.
Now, when they lost their case in 2018, what these workers did was appeal, and they lost again, but they also appealed to the United Nations. The United Nations will not do anything about this. Do you want to know why? Because Unilever is a partner with UN Women alongside the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, Procter & Gamble, the Rockefeller Foundation, and Coca-Cola. Take a look here. This is their website proclaiming that Unilever is one of their business and philanthropic partners for UN Women. Here is where they describe just how wonderful Unilever is for collaborating and contributing to women's empowerment in many areas. Okay, so Unilever can pay lip service to gender equality and pay an obese spokesperson, because that is a fight that they can stand behind on social media and say, hey, we stand for body empowerment, right? You can go mess up your pathology, be as fat as you want, and we stand for it. Even though, okay, let's talk about how healthy it is to be that way. But question, do you think that these women whose homes were looted and burned and got sexually assaulted in front of their kids, do you think they have any idea what it means to be empowered to be as fat as they want? What do you think that means
They're lucky
to
enough to
people
have
like
that kind
that?
of food.
Right. I don't think they have any notion of that kind of affluence and privilege, that you can just be like this. So let's talk for a short minute about what it means to be a fat empowerment influencer, as we sort of like juxtapose these two stories. Here is Diana Bryant announcing her partnership with Dove.
My belief is that we should be centering the voices and experiences of the most marginalized people and communities at all times. So when I think about what fat liberation looks like to me, it looks like centering the voices and the experiences of those who live in and who maneuver through spaces and institutions in a fat body. It looks like making accessible spaces and having conversations that are aware of the fact that people have different bodies and that they are interacting with space and people and institutions and communities in a different way. Fat liberation looks like fully embracing those differences and having those conversations instead of shying away from them. To learn more about fat liberation and the campaign for size freedom that Dove is supporting, visit dove.com/size freedom. Tap in, join the campaign, support the campaign. This is important and we should all be talking about it.
Yeah, it's really important. We should all be talking about.
All right, marginalized,
liberation.
right? Marginalized communities.
So what you're saying
marginalized voices at the center.
So what you're saying is, so these spaces that our bodies need to move through, we need to make sure that airplanes are now enlarged to make sure that we have the space to allow these bodies to move through it. So we make aircraft a certain size. We need to pass laws. We need to pass laws now that Boeing or these other companies enlarge the size of transportation in order to accommodate, right? That's what we're talking about. That's what she's saying.
No, that's not what she's saying. She's saying she wants fat conversations at the center because fat people are a marginalized group.
But she's saying okay, fine. But she's saying my spaces that our bodies are moving through.
She's not talking about she's talking about moving through the world and centering the voices of fat people.
Okay.
Now, I recently read a book all about fat empowering that talked about how you should use fat as a neutral descriptor. And if your kid in a store says, look, that guy's fat, you should say, yeah, isn't it great? Everyone's different size. You should never use fat as any kind of undesirable thing, period. I have a hard time, not feeling like she can't move her face properly. She can't emote as with a lot of movement because she's
encumbered.
It's hard to not feel like, why would you want that for somebody that you loved, and I don't want to be mean about it at all. But I do want to point out a little bit of controversy about her that's separate from this. She once falsely accused a white girl of saying something racist at a Black Lives Matter gathering in her university, and the white girl was stalked for it. She says it ruined her life. She was canceled. The white girl said that people stalked her. Later Bryant said that maybe she didn't actually hear that. She was comfortable saying that about the white girl, but said maybe that wasn't the case. She has also called for defunding the police, but when the Daily Mail showed up at her house for an interview about this Dove campaign, she called the police. So yes, the irony. Because people find her, to be this like extremist person. Now they're calling for a boycott. Let's leave aside for a moment that fat empowerment is not an empowering thing at all. It's extremely hard and unhealthy to live that way. We are allowing transhumanism into our lives to pretend otherwise, to pretend that anyone should think of this as a neutral body descriptor and not something that encumbers your daily life. But just like in the Mulvaney Bud Light case, there was cause for backlash to Dove a long time ago. It is possible that corporate America masks their true bad behavior with the culture wars. I think that's what we're seeing, so that it can righteously and ceremoniously stand on top of this, scream about fat empowerment while not actually empowering plantation workers. Do you see the contradiction here? I'm putting together two groups that we're calling marginalized, and we're only going to scream about one of them because it makes us feel good on social media. You choose which marginalized group should have our attention. Should Dove get the credit for fat empowerment movement, or should they actually just do the right thing in other ways and put the woke shit behind us? You let us know what you think of this in the chat.
Also, can we have a conversation about how Unilever, as the owner of Dove, stands to make a lot of money by pushing the idea of being overweight and unhealthy?
Why? Because you have more soap, more body mass to watch?
No, Unilever owns all sorts of other brands that have nothing to do with soap.
Oh, it's not about surface area. I just did the calculation in my head.
Own sandwich meats and mayonnaise, and Unilever makes all sorts of things, all sorts of food, processed food things that we would love our overweight, not healthy bodies to be eating. That's fat. We're at fat acceptance here at Unilever because, we want you to eat our highly processed food. We need to keep America the fattest country in the world. And how do we do that? We need fat acceptance. And shame on you for saying that that's unhealthy. Shame on you for saying that, she can hardly speak because she's so large. Or shame on you. And so Unilever needs to make their money and their profits behind it. It's like the shaming of people who are being anti-vax, right?
It's literally related to every risk of cancer. Right?
Yes.
So many diseases. And so we're empowering you to do that if you want, right? As opposed to actually like taking care of tea plantation, Yeah. So I don't want to hear it, but I just talked about it for 15 minutes. I don't want to hear it from them. I do want to hear from you what you think.
Just let's think about the amount of, doesn't Unilever own, I think Unilever owns Ben & Jerry's ice cream. Am I wrong? Can someone correct me on that? I'm pretty sure they own Ben & Jerry's ice cream, if I'm not mistaken. I think a few years ago, Unilever bought Ben & Jerry's. I think Unilever owns Breyer's ice cream.
They do own Ben & Jerry's. Yeah.
Oh, so we need
Cornetto.
We need fat acceptance so you can eat your freaking ice cream. Come on, guys. This is the
Magnum. They own a lot of ice
Again,
cream.
this is like the vaccine. This is like being anti-vax, and then you have all these companies. Oh, you're against the COVID vaccine. Oh, okay. Well, then you're you're anti-science, right? And well, no, but Pfizer needs to make a lot of money. So, we need to make sure that we're pro-vaccine and all of those things. We need to make sure that we're all supporting that so that Pfizer and Moderna can make all their money. In the same way that, Unilever needs to make processed bagels so their fat ambassador can eat them, and we shouldn't comment about it. We should just be quiet about it. It's the unhealthiest thing in the world, and America's the fattest country in the world, and
That's
Unilever needs
not
to
true.
make billions.
There are other fatter countries than America.
I think America's the fattest country, is it not?
It's not.
By obesity, by BMI? Is it Mexico? Mexico and the U.S. go back and forth.
No, I think it's a Samoan island or something like
Samoa?
that. Yeah, there are fatter places. So
Okay. Well,
don't get excited about that.
All right. Thank you so much for watching this segment here at Redacted. We are live every day at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, trying to share the stories that the mainstream media will not cover. You should also come over and join our community of Redacted Rebels over at redacted.inc. That's our private locals community where we can share exclusive content that we simply cannot share here on YouTube. Come over and join the rebellion together right now by going to redacted.inc. We'll see you next time.